Good afternoon, good morning, everyone. JP Ruth with Street Fight, and you're definitely not here to see me speak because we're here to talk about how local data is innovating to connect online and offline, and we are definitely here to see these three great CEOs from PlaceIQ, Spatially, and Cuebiq. If we can just go down and just have a quick introduction of each of you. Duncan?
Yeah, hi there. My name's Duncan McCall, co-founder and CEO of PlaceIQ. We've been around for about 7 years. I feel like I've spoken at a lot of these conferences, so it's been great to watch it evolve. And really what we focused on, really solely from the beginning, is taking location and movement data and understanding the intersection of those two to build a new model of consumer behavior. So we're really the first company to sort of build audiences from location, build attribution, and we do a lot of work in analytics now as well.
Hi, my name is Hillit. I'm the founder and CEO of Spatially. We're about 18 months into this. We are a location search and analytics company. We're currently focusing on helping SMBs grow through better understanding their customers, understanding who they are, where to reach them, where can they find more of them, and more importantly, how can they test new products and ideas. We do this through exposing latent data through our maps, and we've developed our analytical tools such as local graphics, ETA, which is an empirical trade area, and our BA. So a few big words to kind of digest, and there's more. Thank you.
Hi. I have a strong Italian loud voice. Hi, I'm Antonio, and CEO and founder of Cuebiq, a 21 months old location intelligence company, completely media agnostic, that helps business glean actionable insights about consumers' behaviors in the offline world. We developed a proprietary intelligence platform that leverages a very large and dense location data set with accurate and precise location data and an estimation of the so-called dwell time, so how much time users are spending in a venue. We built this database through a proprietary and patent-pending SDK. And through our platforms, we provide clients a variety of services like geo-behavioral audiences for cross-platform targeting, media agnostic footfall attribution, and overall offline location analytics and competitive intelligence. We are headquartered here in New York. I'm a proud New York by adoption, as you can guess from my accent, and it's great being here in this panel.
Fantastic. Okay, so we've been hearing for quite some time about big data revolutionizing the understanding of consumer behavior, but I was hoping we could level set and talk about first, what do you see as really what is relevant data to begin with?
What is relevant data to begin with?
Yeah.
In terms of the location space, right? Without straying into the whole conversation about fraud and misreported data, I think from our standpoint, there's a couple of ways to approach what is relevant data. Data, we've all read the cliches, right? There's no shortage of data in the world. The really difficult thing is extracting actionable insights from this data. So just to be completely transparent, when I sit down and I talk to people in the industry who are looking to work with us and buy our solutions, they often say, so what is unique about your data? And I say, you know what, there's not that much that's unique about our data, right? Data is already commoditized tremendously in this world. So the idea of movement data, the idea of location data, there's tremendous amounts of those data sets out there, and they're only accelerating and growing every single day. And of course, the cliche is that it's not data that is the challenge, it's actually extracting insights. So when we think about location and movement and the idea of extracting valuable data, it's not looking at a bunch of dots on a map or looking at a bunch of polygons. It's understanding what really constitutes a visit. Let's take that visit and now understand what is it that is interesting about that visit. What is it in a behavior? Is it a lapsing visit? Is it a consumer that they visited this location for the first time? what's the probability they actually visited if I only see them once versus the probability if I see them multiple times? So in our world, we spent 7 years building a platform that processes data, but more importantly, outputs actionable insights for our clients. So when I think about relevant data, I think about the output really rather than the input.
I'll add to that that data by itself is just dumb. I mean, that's what it is. And our approach is to project the data on a spatial platform to better understand the relationships between all those different data points. So for example, the data points that Duncan was just talking about. To better understand those relationships, to be able to have a broader picture of what the behavior pattern is of these potential consumers, and try to anticipate what their intent is in terms of why they're coming to certain areas. They're spending there a certain amount of time, or what are they trying to get there done? And then bring those insights to small and medium businesses in very small, digestible pieces so that they can actually do something with it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Actionable insights are the key. With that said, I believe that in the location space, there is still an issues around, quality of the data, which is very important. Location data is really tough. Understanding if a consumer is actually in a place or next door is not easy at all. So I think, there is room for improving a lot. In order to really map the consumer journey and to really understand if a visit is a real visit or a pure noise or maybe an employee working there, you really need to have dense data. You really need to have hundreds of data points. You really need to have great accuracy to combine maybe other signals like IoT or Wi-Fi. You really need to apply machine learning to really estimate if the user is there and if it's a real visit. So I think the industry, has to face, yes, some quality issues, and all of that, we don't have to forget about that, must be privacy compliant, which means that users need, deserve transparency, understand that, there are analysis going on in an anonymous way, and they can opt out. So I think, we are not at maturity yet in the location data space. There is still a lot of room for improving the quality and also, the privacy aspects and transparency aspects for consumers. Today it's a little bit yet, the beginning of the market, a little bit Wild West, even in terms of, awareness that your location data is ending up in the hands of data firms. And this must be consolidated.
We expand on that and look at when do we see offline signals start to drive online behavior and vice versa? Where is that kind of intersection that you see in terms of behavior?
Yeah, so the way we sort of think about this, if you think of this world as, obviously, let's just take the idea of marketing as a signal that everyone, to some degree, I think is interested in that as an output. So we traditionally have seen, everybody understands the idea of online to online. Criteo, Google, I see an online signal, you visited a website, you put something in a shopping cart, etc. I chase you around the internet with an ad for those shoes that you didn't check out, you check out and I get attribution. That's online to offline. Traditionally, I think not everybody, but a lot of people in this industry have focused on offline to offline. The idea that I see a behavior in the world, somebody visits a quick service restaurant, somebody visits a hotel, and now I know they have a certain type of behavior, they're in market, now I target them with an ad for that, and I measure from an offline perspective, did they visit my brand of QSR, did they visit my brand of hotel? Well, there's a new world that is really emerging, and obviously it's around this centralized theme that offline and online now are being unified again, right? At the end of the day, it's just consumers, and digital no longer means offline. Online, it can mean offline as well. So one of the things that we've been doing, and I'm sure others as well, is taking offline signals and actually using them to drive online commerce. So we actually released a case study with a retailer called Urban Outfitters, where we were using the movement data that we see in the world to build audiences, and they were actually using those audiences alongside their own first-party purchase data, and they actually announced that they outperformed them. So what the conclusion there was that you can see for many categories, offline signals actually have more signal and can outperform online data. And of course, logically, as a human being, it makes sense, right? because the things I do in the world, especially for certain categories, actually have more relevance and more meaning than the things I do online. So in my world, to your specific question, this idea of offline and online are completely blurring now, and you start to see offline signals driving online, and obviously online signals driving offline, and that I think is a very exciting sort of place and time to be in this industry.
We've developed a segmentation of the population called local graphics, and what that does is it takes your point of interest or whatever the location is. We build a business area around that location which has some kind of relationship, inherent qualities to the businesses and to the behavior patterns within that area that makes it some kind of unit of analysis. From there, we can map out where people are coming from, where's their origination point. And it's very visible, those clusters of people. They don't necessarily coincide with the drive time or with a ring or any of these other zip codes or whatever else we're kind of familiar with. Those are convenient, but they're not realistic. Those clusters of potential consumers kind of fall in three different segments. One is the ones that actually stop in that business area, not necessarily at the store, what Duncan is measuring, but within that area, because then that's a target for you. Then it's up to you kind of figure out how do you bring them in. So they're active there. They either work there, they dropping off a kid at school, they're running an errand, grabbing a cup of coffee, but they are active. The next segment, are the ones that actually pass through. For some reason, maybe that's their shortest way to get to where they're going, but they have some familiarity with that area, and that's your next segment that you want to target. The third one, which is also interesting, is if you take the drive time, which is something that we're all really familiar with, which is also a theoretical kind of ring. It's just a sophisticated ring. But it's incredibly useful because the people that are within that drive time are accessible to that location. We're talking about bricks and mortar, we're talking about local, we're talking about location. They need to have some convenient access. They're not going to be traveling 2 hours away to grab a coffee or possibly even drop a kid off at school. But they have access, but they have zero engagement. That's your third segment that you want to identify and target differently. That's how we see the connection between the offline and the online.
I mean, we are in a very exciting time. As Duncan said, you have online to offline and the vice versa. Examples of what we've been working on, you can analyze today in a privacy compliant way behaviors of people and then, segment them according to their geo-behavior, like if there are, movie theaters goers or Walmart frequent shoppers. And then, for instance, we teamed up with some of the largest cross-device companies. We can provide cross-channel audiences. So you can retarget on desktop, and potentially now we run the first pilots on connected TV, people based on their behavior in the physical world. So now you're going from offline to online, a kind of physical world retargeting. And it works very well, of course, if you have quality data and great algorithm. Vice versa, it is now a reality. It is possible to do offline measurement for TV campaigns or web campaigns. So you can absolutely measure if a CTV campaign is generating an uplift in terms of physical stores visits. So the cross-channel opportunity, so smartphone technology and location technology is finally fulfilling the promise of creating a true bridge and enable marketers to have a true cross-channel strategy, both in terms of targeting and offline measurement. And this is a great trend that will expand, and especially with there is room for players that are also media agnostic and can become really the enablers of this kind of offline measurement and cross-channel strategy without touching media. That's what we're trying to do. And you can even go beyond that. You can imagine, outdoor campaigns where you are able to isolate people exposed to billboards and then retarget these consumers on mobile and web. This is another reality that it's now theoretically feasible thanks to the progress in identity management and in location technology. And if we're able as an industry to do that in the right way with self-regulation in terms of privacy, this is going to be so exciting for marketers. I'm personally very passionate about the timing we're living.
Is there any kind of litmus test that businesses should be looking at and try to consider in terms of discerning that this is tangible and relevant and actionable? Is there anything that they should kind of have in a frame of mind that they're thinking about when they're looking about any kind of service, any kind of data that somebody wants to kind of put forth to them to make use of?
So, there's many ways to answer that, right? I think I would say my observations over the years have been that the most successful organizations that from my perspective, I've seen us work with, and obviously with the caveat, this is a very complicated set of capabilities that we all talk about, this industry's been working on for a long time, so it isn't something simple, and this set of capabilities often spans across multiple departments. So where we've seen success is when we're working with a client that really has a very advanced sort of data strategy and culture. Because it's one thing to say, we're building a data lake, or we're all about data. It's another thing to have a brand or an advertiser or an organization that's really configured its internal culture in a way that data sets are shared, so that television, out of home, mobile display, they all use the same resources, same platforms. So for us, one thing we've seen is the culture and the adoption of the company. I think one of the other big things is, it sounds very basic, right? But this is one of these things that is a reoccurring theme in our world, is when you talk to a client, actually understanding what KPI are they shooting for, right? Are you looking to reach a specific audience and it's just about reach and frequency to that audience? Are you looking to drive a specific outcome? What outcome? How are you going to measure it? How are you going to understand whether it's successful? What's your uplift? What's your methodology, et cetera? Are you looking to drive some kind of basic digital conversion? So when we've seen this from our standpoint, right, the culture of businesses that have been successful, it's less about approaching us with a checklist of, do you do this? Do you do that? Because very easy for everybody to just check yes, and the amount of RFIs with checklists we see is, is a depressing topic, but, what much better is the standard cliche of working with an organization that wants to partner, that really wants to figure out what is going to work, what isn't going to work. Let me figure out my KPIs. Let me work with you to create mutual benefit. Those are the types of attitudes we've seen from our clients that have resulted in most success.
So our audience is the SMBs, literally the brick and mortars that are out there. And they have a perceived sense that they're chasing them. All these digital companies are coming after them. And what we're trying to do is come back to them and say, look, you have an opportunity to kind of control your destiny. You actually have many tools that can help you make these decisions and better understand what you're up against, what is impacting you, and what can you impact. When we started talking to the SMBs, and this is about as gritty as it gets, these folks barely understand how their POS works. I mean, they can't pull any information out of it, which is fun because this is really the bottom of the barrel in terms of the information and the data that you can get, which tells us that we have to help them supplement all this information, which is great because we have the capability to do it. So when we started talking to them, their first question was, well, can you tell us something about our customers? And we're scratching our heads, what do you mean? Don't they walk through your door? I mean, can't you tell who they are? Yeah, but we don't know where they're coming from. We don't know, where we fit in their life. Where are they going? How can we better serve them? And then we started understanding that what they're actually asking for is, tell us something about these people that are coming in. Give us something to hang our hat on to say, we serve you because this is what you do and this is what we want to provide for you. And that's it.
Yeah, the situation today in the market is that, location data is very new, and so in order to succeed, marketers need to find the right data and the right insights. And I agree with Duncan that this will happen where if the brand has a data culture and is already putting in place a team of data analytics and data experts, because otherwise, it's tough. In the market, you have several solutions. And if you design, for instance, the control group for an offline measuring campaign in the bad way, you are going to get data that is pointless. You're going to consider users who would have come anyway. You don't really have an uplift analysis. I mean, Duncan published yesterday on Ad Age a very nice article about that. And we are in this kind of situation where, marketers are solicited by, tons of potential data providers, but they really need to understand the methodology. They really need to have the data culture, which is fundamental to understand what it can really work, what are the KPIs, and what KPIs are real and not just based on some assumption that is, not right at the base. So this is a challenge. I believe today the market is challenging, an education. There is an education challenge, and it's our responsibility as well to talk about that and to identify what the issues could be and what kind of insights and KPIs you can really extrapolate from location data.
Now, on consumer behavior, has there been anything that you all have learned about the way consumers are behaving now, how it's evolved, the direction things are going in, that you've come to realize through the work that you've been doing?
Talking about consumers themselves? Consumers themselves?
Yeah, about consumers themselves.
They're creatures of habit. I mean, you know, they have their patterns in their life. It changes occasionally for little bits, but they're creatures of habit. And I think it's our job to kind of expose what stage, you know, they are during the day, the month, the year, what their needs are, and help them figure, you know, find what they're looking for.
We actually did we launched a product recently called Landmark, which essentially is an interface to access the data. You can extract the data. You can also slice and dice it by a BI tool. And one of the really interesting things, this has been just a long promise in our company of actually being able to go into our clients and saying, okay, sit down now, just ask questions of the data. So you can literally sit down and you can start to do things like, so let's look at Q4 last year, Costco versus Walmart versus Target. How busy were their stores? How far did people drive? How many people drove past a Walmart to go to a Costco? How is Costco's Black Friday strategy similar or different? And you can see all of the data. It's fascinating. You know, some of the fun things we've been sort of talking about is you can see the impact of IHOP. When IHOP have Free Pancake Tuesday, you really think, does it actually drive any traffic? Well, you can look DMA by DMA, and you can see, I think it's March 7th, obviously casual dining, QSR, weekends have big pops. Suddenly IHOP has this huge pop in the middle of the week. And what's interesting is to say, so those people who go in for the Free Pancake Day, are they stealing share from someone else? Are they just getting people who don't normally go in the week? I did an interesting presentation at another conference whereby the night before I said, I got to do something more interesting. And I went into our system and I said, I wonder if I can tell, this was a presentation in Europe, I wonder if I can tell the story of American spring break through one of our dashboards. And I went in, I just looked at Panama City, Florida, and it's fascinating to see which businesses did really well from spring break, what days did they do well. No great surprise, Buffalo Wild Wings, alcohol and sports did very well. And then you could see of all the college towns that these people came from, what businesses suffered from all the students leaving. And you could see this when they go back. So I think, you know, from my mind, we're now sort of entering this world with this type of data whereby you can actually now ask real-time, incredibly granular, sophisticated questions of the data and get answers. And I think that's a whole new world. It's no longer about directional insights. It's about querying real census-based data, understanding specific behaviors down to locations, then activating against that in a census-based omnichannel format. That's the stuff that we see as really, you know, exciting right now.
Yeah, we believe location is the single most powerful signal in terms of understanding the intent of the consumer, and in terms of, you know, creating a true picture of the consumer behavior. And location data is very powerful for a very simple reason that, you know, you as a brand in the market, of course, you have data, you have first-party data, you have your CRM, you have your transaction data, but by location data, you can really have competitive intelligence insights. That's the real power and promise of location data. I mean, we are able to provide to our clients an analysis of how their market share is evolving, even estimate revenue of competitors in a quarter because, you know, the location data will correlate, if the quality is good, will correlate with sales. So they can be used as a real-time proxy for basically performances of the brand. We're even working with hedge funds that are interested in you know, understanding ahead of the quarterly end statement how the brand will do. And you can do that by location data, and you can really do competitive intelligence. You can understand brand loyalty, brand affinity, cross-shopping patterns, how they get to your stores. This is very exciting, and this kind of insights cannot be you know, derived from any other data, because you as a brand, you will have just your own first-party transactional data and maybe public data about your competitors at the end of the quarter. So I think, you know, location data is a real chance to disrupt marketing and to really provide always more insights about your consumers, but most importantly about your competitors' consumers and about what your consumers do when they leave your store. Which is the real bridge you need to understand their habits and to understand how to make them more loyal or recall them. That's, I believe, why I'm personally very excited about the development in the location data space.
All right, so we've got a few minutes left. I'd like to open up the floor for any questions from the audience.
I'm just curious about volume. I mean, it works well for like a Home Depot or even IHOP where people are coming in and out. What about businesses that don't have as many people come into their stores' locations? Maybe even dry cleaner or insurance agent or something like that.
That's a real issue, and the solution to that is really scale and data density in our perspective. There are few players in the market that are reaching a scale where you are really able to get meaningful and actionable insights even for regional stores or even single stores. Other methodologies may be more panel-driven. There is a real statistical issue in this case, because if you have to do offline measurement, but you are analyzing just 3 visits, and you have to do an uplift analysis based on 3 visits. Of course, if you have 4, it's going to be 33% uplift, but it has 0 statistical significance. What I think it's important for location companies is, scale, accuracy, density, and also transparency, guys. It's really important that you, as marketers, understand really well what you're buying, understand the underlying methodology, the size of the panel, the number of visits that are analyzed to produce the uplift offline measurement report. Transparency must become a real value in this industry, absolutely. Because, again, doing any kind of analysis on 3 or 4 visits has 0 value. It's like, random guess. So you deserve to know the truth in this case.
So I think also if you take scale, 2 quick comments. Scale, I think it's inevitable you'll start to see the scale. The way I sort of answer that myself is if you get out Google Maps and you scroll down on a place page now, you see typically even for a small single store location, Google has all the stats. When is it busy? Is it busy right now, etc.? That's because they're Google. They have tremendous scale. And you'll start to see that change. I think to Antonio's point as well, one of the other big challenges in the industry is if you're going to project and start to do methodologies to project on different things, there's no standardized approach for that. The MRC has released some guidelines, but very loose, very early. So this really is a sort of self-regulated world now. Nobody knows what a visit is. Nobody knows what a particular type of behavior is from location. So as the industry matures, I think you'll start to see scale in those long-tail places, but still tricky right now unless you're a Google or a Facebook.
I think we got it pretty well for the scale part. So between the brands and the bigger stores, you have all these mom and pop shops, you have all the smaller stores, the guy that's trying to open up his 3rd store, the 5th store. We know how to help them because for them, their measures is not lift and ROI and all that. They just want to see their sales growing. They know what they're looking for. So for us to come and tell them, hey, this is your ROI, like, no, it's not, it's something else. So it's kind of, the proof is different when you're talking to small and medium businesses who have, a number of locations, maybe under 50, even 50 is kind of pushing it. But the ones that are just trying to grow, there has to be some tools and the analytics has to help these companies grow. That's all they're looking for.
We have time for one really quick question, 1 minute.
So Apple, Google, others are continuing to make a lot of noise about consumer privacy and constant enhancements. What ramifications will that likely have on your ability to collect and understand the data that's available to you?
Yeah, so I think this is just, again, sort of my perspective on this, which is having now sort of ridden this sort of just the privacy roller coaster for the last 7 years. 7 years ago, privacy was a huge hot button. People were getting sued. People may remember Pandora got sued, Weather Channel got sued, etc. And it died down for a while. Then it came up again. Then there was the NSA thing. Then it went up. Then it went down. Then we have the Trump administration. So, gutted the FCC. So that's gone to the sidelines. So it's gone up and down. This is the way I personally see it from a privacy standpoint. I think everybody now has realized on all sides of the table you can't legislate around technology. You've got to legislate around uses of technology. I also think you have seen overall a very responsible usage by the industry of location. The only thing that sort of springs to mind is the flashlight stuff that was slightly problematic. I also think you have seen a continued move by Google and Apple to open up this and give user consent, including most recently, last week or this week, where they're changing user consent. So I think you add all those things up, I now think we're into this stage whereby location data is a standardized data set that's going to be used, and the consumers will control and consent that.
Actually, we are out of time, unfortunately. I'd like to thank our guests, Antonio, Hillit,
Thank you so much, guys.
Duncan. Give them a round of applause. Hopefully they'll be around if you have further questions to ask them. Thank you.